all the esteemed speakers and the attendees to this highly enlightening session on the future of exhibition, event and convention industry. Our industry is in a state of turmoil, but as they say, every cloud has a silver lining, and we do believe that this too shall pass. I would like to welcome our esteemed speakers, Mr. Rajesh Agrawal, Executive Director of India Trade Promotion Organization and also the Chairman of India M.I.C.E Alliance. We have with us Mr. Phua, Executive Director, Exhibitions and Conferences, Experience Development Group, Singapore Tourism Board, Ms. Nichapa Yoswee, Senior Vice President, Thailand Convention and Exhibition Bureau, Mr. Chung, who is the CEO of Kinexin, who is also the IICC operator in New Delhi, Dwarka, Mr. Michael Duck, the Executive Vice President, Asia Informa Markets. We have with us Mr. Ravinder Sethi, who is the CMD of R.E. Rogers, India. With this, I would like to welcome Mr. Rajesh Agrawal to kindly open up the session and tell us what has been the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the Indian exhibition and convention industry so far.
COVID-19 pandemic, I think everywhere across the world, each one of us is experiencing the same outcomes. India, we started slowly, but in India, I think the COVID-19 pandemic has actually grown in a very steady way over the last 2-3 months. And this growth of COVID-19 beyond April 2020 in India has led to, one, the exhibition industry completely coming to a standstill. Indian exhibition industry, which does have an economic impact of an annual economic impact of around $9 billion in the country, has completely come to a standstill. And we are seeing till date, we are 5 months into this financial year, we have not been able to hold any events. Hospitality sector, tourism sector, everything has been impacted deep down. Having said that, all other industry, the good part has been that all other industry are slowly coming to normal and they are taking life as it goes along. You have started seeing in India, we have started seeing that offices are now functioning as normal. Some bit of public transport have started functioning. Domestic travel has become easy. And people are taking COVID also as a part of their life and trying to live how we can start surviving, start doing our own activities and start getting to normal with COVID at the back of our mind and taking all precautions that are deemed fit. So what has happened also is that the economy, which was completely choked out in April because of the nation-wide lockdown, has slowly started reviving, and the first quarter we are told there has been a contraction of around 15 to 20% in the economy. The second quarter is going to be better because definitely there has been more movement, more activities, and the growth can be seen in multiple parts. Exhibition industry by its own nature is something which was first to get impacted, and I think which will be one of the last to get going. It may come out of it faster. The speed of growth, the speed of revival can be faster, but the revival process for this industry will start, I think, in one of the farthest for other industry, because other industries, because of their nature, the way they can conduct themselves, they have been able to move ahead. But exhibition industry, by way that people feel that this is a industry which will bring in people together, which is an antithesis to COVID, I think governments are very wary of letting it start too soon. But we are also watching what is happening across the world. We are aware of the fact that the exhibition industry in some way has made its beginning back in China. It has made its beginning somewhat in Korea. It is going to make its beginning in Germany next month. So slowly things are emerging and happening across the world. And we as a government organization and as a part of the exhibition industry also have taken this onus on us to see that how we convince the government to give also a future date from when we are planning and opening up the exhibition industry in India. We feel the opening of an exhibition industry in India, though whenever the government decide will open, but it will not, the revival will not be in one go. The exhibition industry will have to phase out its revival and maybe start up with small domestic events to build that confidence that is necessary. And once we are able to build that confidence, international mobility improves and things are getting more back to normal, I think we can get back to our old big exhibitions that are expected out of this industry. We at ITPO feel that this is an important element of any economy, and we have been in talks with the government to make our point very clear that if the economic growth in India has to come back to its normal, it has to get back to on its heels. I think exhibition industry also in some way should be allowed to contribute to it, because we are best placed to contribute and bring all the stakeholders together to contribute to the growth of an economy. I look forward to observations and experiences of all my colleagues who are gathered here today. And as we go along, I'll be happy to share more on what is happening. But I assume that this is the similar scenario across the world, whether it's Thailand, Singapore, or any other place in the world. And whatever has happened there, we like to learn here and try to see whether we can use those examples to convince our government here to make an early comeback in India too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Agrawal, for those updates. I would now like to move to Mr. Michael Duck, who represents Informa Markets, being the largest exhibition organizer in the world. I would like to have updates from you. What's going on in the industry and what has been the impact in particular to your events, and what do you feel this situation has brought out for the exhibition and convention industry, not just in Asia, but also in other parts of the world?
Some very small lights of good hope for our industry at the moment. But who actually knew, as I said 6 months ago, how fragile our industry, our world was, that it broke down so quickly due to COVID-19 in regards to health. And this black swan with the other black swan of recession, economic recession, and potential depression came paddling along and hit us all in a huge way. The damage to people's health has had huge impact. The damage to all our businesses and businesses globally has had an enormous impact, as we all know. Borders are closed, hotels are closed, or very, very low occupancies, venues are closed, airlines are mainly sitting around doing nothing on airports. I lived in Hong Kong during the SARS epidemic, which was a truly awful time and lasted some 7-8 months or so, affected Hong Kong, Singapore, southern China, and Canada, mainly in Toronto and Vancouver. It didn't affect many other places or any other places, but it was a very, very serious epidemic, and the mortality rates were about 4 times higher than they are with COVID-19. Trouble with COVID-19 is it's a pandemic that's gone global. And the numbers are just truly phenomenal, as you have found in India, where presently, you have, I think you had yesterday some 77,000 new cases, which brings up to some 35 lakh infections totally. These are figures which are just mind-boggling. And I have to say, congratulations to the medical fraternity and sorority in India and elsewhere for some extraordinarily wonderful work that's being done in the medical centers globally. The things we've had to do to try to limit our positions are things like temperature controls at airports, temperature controls at hotels, making sure that most of our offices are closed so that people are working from home. I've just advised the panel here that from next week, my office in Hong Kong, we will have 25% of the office working in the office. for the first time for about 6 weeks or so, as we had recently a spike in Hong Kong. This has now gone down. And I know that my fellow Informa colleagues in the UK are also going to be back in the office, but only about a quarter or maybe a tenth, because it's up to them whether they go back in the office or not. There is nowhere else in the world at the moment that we have shows going on except for China. So in China, we have put on 7 shows this past 5 weeks. The situation in China is at the moment that all offices are working. Most of the domestic airlines are working. Trains are working. People are going to the office. And so the shows that we have on, and also others like Reed and Tarsus and other Chinese industry colleagues, they are putting on their shows, but they are for domestic shows only. These are domestic exhibitors and domestic buyers. There are no internationals because of the quarantine that is still in force when going into China. To give you an example, in Hong Kong, which borders the People's Republic of China to Shenzhen, if I want to go to Shenzhen, I have to have a 2-week quarantine in China when I step across the border. And then when I come back to Hong Kong, I have to have another 2 weeks of quarantine when I come back to Hong Kong. With the quarantine, I have to also have a bracelet on my hand where I'm checked by authorities every few days as to where I am, because there's a GPS in this bracelet. So these are really quite serious positions that are put on to make sure that the COVID-19 infections are reduced. And both in Hong Kong and in China, over the past few days, there's been about an average of 18 or 19 cases in the total of China. So a similar population to India, 1.4 billion. There's a marked differential in the numbers, but similar in terms of the regulations for quarantine and also in terms of certification, etc. We see in the rest of the world, and I'm sure that we'll hear from Jochen when he's online, about Germany and places like France and Italy, where there have been no shows. Germany supposedly is going to be having some shows coming on as from next month. They're allowed to do so. I understand the first show is going to be a caravan show by Messe Düsseldorf. We shall see if it happens. Just last week, the large fashion textile fair, Premier Vision in Paris, it's been around for some 80 years or so, was cancelled for the first time. It was going to take place in 2 weeks' time, but is not now. There are many shows also in Spain, the UK, Italy, that have all been cancelled. And it seems likely that we're looking at Q1 or Q2, or probably Q2 or Q3. We may find 1 or 2 small shows starting again in Europe. And we may, given that the numbers go down, also have a similar position in Asia. But you're not looking until Q2, Q3. We'll hear from Nichapa and also from Andrew. But I know in Thailand there will be some shows taking place this quarter, and I hope that they will take place. But we all have got quite used to seeing what the position is when we get to it. Still in Asia and ASEAN, we have countries like the Philippines, where the numbers are going up, Indonesia, where the numbers are going up, and actually Bali has advised that they're not going to take any tourists until the beginning of 2021. We've also got positions in the other way where the Maldives, and Andrew, you can help me here, as I understand it, have taken some 5,000 tourists from Singapore. So that's like a bubble. So people are trying these elements at the moment, and let alone there supposedly is a business bubble between Singapore and Malaysia to restart some positions there. But these are very slow positions and very slow bubbles that are taking place. There's another one in between China and South Korea. And in Korea, that you have a position where key business people can go to China, but they have to do a 2-day quarantine. But then I think it's a 2-week quarantine when they go back to Korea. So we've got quite a long way still to go. What to do, and what to do also, particularly when we look at India. The first is, I think what we're going to be looking at is stimulating, as in China, the domestic shows. So how can we do this in India? We've got to start to stimulate in each of the states. It may be quite difficult to bring people and exhibitors or attract people from different states at the moment, but let's try to get those from Maharashtra or Mumbai to meet and start. Hopefully in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months afterwards, dependent on the numbers, that we can look at how to start to get people used to meeting again. Because this is one of the most important things we've got to do is to create confidence in our market, confidence in our businesses, and confidence in our business model. But before we get the confidence of the international business travel, so we can get international business coming into each of our respective cities, states, countries, etc. And they feel confidence to come because they feel that they're not going to have any problems with quarantines when they come to a country, but also that they feel safe about going to the hotel and also to the venues that they're in. Quite a lot of exhibitors, I find, also have pressures not only from within their own companies, but also from family about traveling, which is quite an interesting perspective now, compared to a year, 6 months ago before this COVID-19 came. Just a last comment. The other issue, which is sitting there behind us all, is the lack of cash flow. And I think I said this at our last meeting some 4 or 5 months ago. This is going to get worse and worse until it gets better for our industry. In Europe and the Americas, where very few conferences or shows are on or will be on, there's a system called furloughing, which means that the governments help and assist the payments of workers, employees, and they have done for the last 6 months or so. But until about the end of October, these will, in the main, at the moment, be terminated. So we're going to have to see what happens when so many people start to not have jobs anymore and go on to more government schemes of unemployment. So this is why we have to really work together about coming back. We can't just wait for government positions, and we have to stimulate our businesses to bring confidence back again. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dutt. These are very elaborate and comprehensive inputs coming from you, and you raised many good points about confidence building measures.
Thank you for the opportunity to update on Singapore. I think a couple of points maybe I would like to first highlight is the reopening of our economy. And we are opening in a very safe and calibrated manner. We have actually started to look at border controls and lifting of travel restrictions as early as 19th of June, when we started to look at resumption of economic and social activities. But more importantly, when it comes to resumption of M.I.C.E events, we are going to be piloting the smaller ones before we scale up and step up to the largest trade show. At the meantime, we are looking at a framework which we are working very closely with the MICE Association of Singapore, SASIOS, and this will be in the form of a industry resilience roadmap, or IRR for short, where we'll be coming out with an event guide to guide the MICE industry on how to reopen for business and also how to repivot from physical shows to virtual and to hybrid. So we will be publishing an IRR guide pretty soon, next month. In terms of piloting, we have actually piloted one business event this week, as in 24th to 26th of August. It's a small event known as IEEE. It's a conference, and we'll be piloting a second event known as APEC Med in September. Now, both events have about less than 50 people, and I think our whole approach is to let the event run in a very safe manner. We collect enough data, enough insights, and we will scale it up from there. So we look forward to opening up more of other business events of different formats and different sizes once our pilots are concluded. The second point perhaps I would like to elaborate is more on travel restrictions and travel bubbles. We have begun to reopen some of our border controls. You might have known that the very first country that we have opened up in terms of what we call a reciprocal green lane are selected provinces and cities in China. And we will be gradually opening up to other cities as well. On 10th of August, Malaysia and Singapore have also opened up our reciprocal green lane so that employees, workers, and visitors could enter both countries for essential business and official purposes. We are keen to also look at creating more regional travel bubbles, and this will allow more cross-border travel within countries, which is equivalent or lower risk of community transmission to Singapore. So we have actually announced 2 so far. By a few days time, a few weeks time, we'll be announcing the starting of visitors from Brunei and New Zealand. This will actually start in September, where they will be allowed to enter Singapore, do a COVID-19 test. Once they are tested negative, they are free to roam like any Singaporeans or local, and they do not have to serve any 14 days quarantine or stay home notice. So we are starting with 2 countries for now, and we hope to open for more. At the meantime, green lane discussions and travel bubbles are also being discussed with several other countries, and this include South Korea, Japan, Australia, and as of yesterday, Thailand. So I hope to see Nichapa very soon, whether in Singapore or Thailand. The other portion that we look at is really engaging the MICE industry. I think at this downtime where we cannot start events or business events on the large scale, we have been sending or supporting our MICE industry to undergo training. So I think there's a slew of webinars and virtual meetings that we have where we support them in terms of grants and scheme, be it building up their digital capability or building up the capacity and capability. But in the meantime, we're also looking at preserving jobs, which I think is very important. I think when we reopen our MICE business, we want a situation where our employees, our talent, our workforce will be ready to help Singapore to reopen. And what we have done is to look at different types of scheme. The total budget that we have allocated from a government perspective nationwide is Singapore $100 billion, and this comes in different forms. It can be job support scheme, financial and cash flow support, or training courses. The one that has been most useful so far is a job support scheme, where the Singapore government subsidizes up to 75% of the first 4,600 of the gross salary of every local employee for a period of 10 months. We announced that some time ago, and the scheme is ending. And we have actually extended the scheme about 2 weeks ago, that we will continue to provide subsidies of up to 50% for the first 4,600 for every local employee, including MICE. So hopefully this will help in terms of preserving our manpower and our talent. Now, other forms of financial support include deferment of income tax, bridging loan, rental relief, and so forth. The other piece that we are working very closely with our industry and SaaS skills is really to look at new business models and new event formats. I've never attended so many webinars in my life for the past 8 months, and I think we're getting a little bit of a webinar fatigue, right? We can only talk screen to screen, and definitely we would like our event organizers to pivot to hybrid so that we can have a physical footprint of events. It might be smaller, but done in a very safe manner and we can complement it with digital and virtual platforms. So that's something that we'll be trying and testing with our event organizers and the industry. And once our industry resilience roadmap is completed and done by Sasios, we'll be more than happy to share with everyone, and we can start to kickstart the process. Yeah. So that's all for the update for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And those were really strong impetus and stimulus points coming from you. I'm sure Singapore is a leader in providing incentives.
First, I would like to thank Rajesh for having me, and good day to all. Before I answer or share some intel, I first like to sort of, on behalf of Thailand, I would say, express thanks to all the medical professionals worldwide for their hard work in keeping us all safe. So thank you to all those heroes. Answer to your question, I think since the outbreak, I would like to share that the government has launched at least 5 phases of economic stimulus package worth more than 65 billion US dollars, just to support SMEs, including M.I.C.E stakeholders, and like my friend here, Andrew, the government has provided series of soft loan, some wage compensation or cash handouts to some workers. And recently, the government just launched a new campaign to boost local travel industry by providing subsidy for overnight stay and including discount on domestic air ticket. They also announced a policy for state enterprises, state agencies, and big corporates to do meetings and seminars in other cities, just to make sure that we get the money circulated in other cities nationwide. And to me, this reflects on how the government has been using M.I.C.E as the economic driver for the whole country. The other good news on Thailand, I would say, is that since June, the government has announced the reopen of M.I.C.E sectors, which means that all M.I.C.E events can operate without limits on size or number of attendees. And this is owed to the collaboration between TCEP and also domestic M.I.C.E associations, from incentive and convention associations, including exhibition association and some mega event associations. We came together and we believe that this COVID thing has caused the government to shut down a lot of businesses. Of course, M.I.C.E is included at that point of time. And in order to reopen M.I.C.E, we need to make sure that the government understands. At the same time, they feel and they have enough confidence that if we open M.I.C.E, any events, M.I.C.E events, we can run a safe events without posing any risks in terms of becoming a super spreader of COVID-19. So we team up and we come up with what we call M.I.C.E hygiene discipline, which right now has been approved by the Ministry of Health and has been served as the new normal standard procedure, operating procedure for all M.I.C.E events. And therefore, all M.I.C.E operators has this protocol or guideline in hand. We managed to sustain, in terms of exhibition, usually we supported like 54 international events every year. And since COVID, we managed to sustain half of them. So we already have a few exhibitions going on since July, and all are operating under this new hygiene guideline as a new SOP. We even invite the representative from the Ministry of Health to come and inspect the way that we operate, so that they have enough good confidence in order to support the open up of or the lifting of the international restriction or travel restriction. So we have that in place, the M.I.C.E hygiene. Right now, the government has, since the beginning, the government has also applied a very stringent measure in terms of personal hygiene and also public hygiene, in terms of quick detection, quick medication, and also quick management. And they also enforce a self-protection mechanism for all Thai population. And I believe that the stringent measure paid off, because right now Thailand has been ranked #1 in the world in terms of Global Recovery Index from COVID-19. So we have been COVID-free for the past 90 days, 3 months now. All new cases are imported, and that to me makes Thailand one of the safest place or destination to run any events from now on. The government has also talked about travel bubble, and we are focusing, like Andrew, we are working with Singapore, Japan, China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, as well as Korea. So even though this would take time, I believe that this initiative would somehow come up with a fruitful result in the near term. And by then, I believe that domestic events will become norm for Thailand for the time being. We also provide a lot of subvention program. We revise the whole subvention program just to make sure that we cater to international organizers for domestic events. So even though you are the international organizers, we usually try to bring more international travelers. And right now it is nearly impossible. So with that in mind, if you run or you continue your program, we continue with our support, even though we don't have any international participations, and that's fine too. We even have additional subvention program. We call it re-energizing exhibition. We have, instead of providing a variable factors cater to number of international travelers, we are now providing fixed subsidy. We also provide additional subsidy to cater new normal for any organizers to use it as the hygiene practice, or whether they want to use it for technology to make sure that they use technology to hide visitor audience interest, engagement, and also experience, even promote the touchless experience. So a series of campaign has been launched. We have the hygiene guideline in place. We are now working with the government to ask for more the lift of international travel ban, so that we can really cater for the current incoming inquiries from international that they want to bring the groups into Thailand. So basically, Thailand is now ready. We have all the measures in place. We have subvention in place. We're also working with domestic associations to identify new products and services. And this is besides exhibition, we are working on new destination within Thailand. We are looking into bringing more exhibition into industry zone like EEC, which is one of the largest investment projects ever have in Southeast Asia. So with that in mind, TCEP has been ready in terms of providing the ecosystem. We are ready to facilitate, and we are now working with more organizers. Next year, we already have 43 exhibitions confirmed. We have 14 new exhibitions in the pipeline. We are working on a little bit of the details. In terms of convention, we managed to secure more than 45. We are looking at 50 plus convention. We also are working with associations, Asia Association, to see whether we can come up with Asia version, Asia convention for Asia, instead of waiting for global convention to come back, because it won't be happening within the next few years, according to the research. In terms of meetings and incentive, we have series of inquiries from international to come back. India has always been one source market in that front, and we have received a good number from Indian corporates as well to bring groups to Thailand. So thanks to that. So all in all, in summary, even though we have been losing almost 80 million US dollars to COVID, right now we are trying to make sure that we sustain or we provide a good ecosystem for domestic events. We are using this opportunity to homegrown domestic events. We also provide additional fundings to make sure that international organizers can enjoy a more, or I would say a COVID package during this period of the year. The the capabilities development has always been in good shape and in good direction. We are working on improving or having professionals certified by international standards. We also have been in touch or been working with international associations to work together, not only in terms of training, but also doing some exchange program so that we can have talent extended to the world. So that's it from me in terms of updates from Thailand in terms of MICE.
Thank you, Nichapa. Those were very solid points coming from you. You can give us a guiding light about how to go about the reopening, what measures his venue has been taking, and in particular.
From 1st of May this year again. But before 1st of May this year, when the corona was up, the organizers voluntarily stopped organizing shows from mid-February this year. So mid-February to end of April, we didn't have the exhibitions, but it was a kind of voluntary consensus that we have amongst organizers, Korean organizers. And I've been in South Korea because I cannot travel to India right now. So from the 1st of May up until last week, we had only in Kintex venue in South Korea, we had about 22 shows. And some of them were still robust as it used to be. And some of them didn't enjoy as many as a number of visitors that we used to have. So, Corona affected pretty much of our businesses, but our business was relatively robust like before. And yeah, I try to distribute some sort of Korean SOPs like that we developed with Korean government and associations and ourselves, and also, and in conjunction with the collaboration from the organizer side. So we developed our own formats. So we included many viable data with photos, and we distributed as a small contribution to India society and also South Korean society and UFI. So those materials, our guideline preventive measures of all types, based upon the actual cases happened here in South Korea in Kintex venue, are all available. So people can reach me for further information, or even Radhav has all those information. What has changed after COVID, I thought about it, and definitely F&B events are gone, and no catering driven event, no large conventions and meetings densely packed with so many visitors, and because we have to implement social distancing norms of all types. And government events are all gone. So many agencies who used to organize shows and conferences on behalf of our government, their businesses are badly affected, but private sectors are relatively fine. As of about a week ago, we one more time we happened to stop organizing shows here in Korea again until further notice. Even though, but up until this moment, South Korean government have never banned such activities. It's all voluntarily done. But organizers, because there has been recently a little spike in number of the affected people. So not severe, but we consider it it could be developed. So we voluntarily have a kind of consensus of doing that later. So many organizers are postponing again. But I guess maybe first or second week of September, we will do that again. And another change that I can watch here in South Korea is that in Korea, In the past, our most worrisome part was that we didn't have many international shows, but now it has become a good thing for South Korea because we have so many robust local shows. So they are relatively fine because they're not affected uh, the, the little number of international visitors traveling to this country. So ironically, having local shows, robust local shows are kind of helpful these days. And we have no spouse or post-show travel program, no sporting activities of any kind. And interestingly, we have so many concerts, but we have so many K-pop concerts, but with no audience. So it is all televised, all video recorded, and it's now on air via social media and everything. So those are the changes that I can see from South Korea. And lastly, I'm in charge of India operation, but IICC New Delhi venue. Now the construction got slowed down a little bit due to some stoppage of the construction in New Delhi. The IICC venue is now 70% complete due to the recent stoppage of the construction. But now we have 40,000 or something crews for the construction. So now now it's becoming robust again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phil Chung. Yes, IICC Dwarka is going to be one big project, and it's going to be the pride of Indian MICE industry. Insights about the MICE industry, exhibition and convention industry in the world, in different regions.
It will start in the east. Yeah, and I think that's clear, fairly clear. It's happening. China is, I would say, not back on track yet, but it is coming on track. For those of you who are not familiar with the situation in China, many shows have started, and even I would even think it is most likely the largest, but perhaps if not the largest, but then one of the largest shows just taking place, one of the largest show in the world. It's a furniture show in Shenzhen. It had 320,000 square meters of indoor exhibition. And it just took place. It was somehow less visitors than they expected, but it was very, very successful. And visitor numbers were good, but again, not as high as they initially expected. But it was a good show. In terms of what's going on in Europe, I think the situation is very different right now. We see, I would say, a kind of nationalization of the efforts. Nationalization means that each country is taking its own efforts to protect their population, which means that we have very, very different kind of regulations and provisions for the MICE business. In Germany, we're expecting that some shows will start early next month, meaning September. If we look at the shows, let's be careful. We always like to talk about shows are back. They are not, that is for sure. It's just, let's say, a very tiny mirror of what it used to be. I give you one example. IFA, which is basically the European CES, will take place beginning of September. It's a show which used to have 240,000 visitors on 180,000 square meters of exhibition space. Now they're calculating with 5,000 to 6,000 invited visitors, meaning invited, it's mainly press and retail business, and they will reduce the exhibition space basically to something like 6,000, 7,000, 8,000. They will create stages where exhibitors can present their products and so on and so forth. Some other shows are in the waiting line. The interesting part will be the Caravan Salon in Düsseldorf. That will take place practically the week after IFA. It's a classical B2C show. So I will go there myself to look at and see how they will deal with the safety measures. It's going to be very, very interesting to see that, and how whether they will limit the number of visitors and how they're going to do that. When we look further to the west in the United States, basically you can say there is practically nothing. It's Zippo. Nothing really going on. And my perception is that this will take at least until the end of the year, and then the business might start gradually again. Yeah, outlook for me is, I would say, not as positive as many others. I don't think if we will get back to pre-crisis levels, I don't think that will happen before 2023 or even 2024. I was initially more optimistic, but right now I don't think it will happen, because we have one problem in this world, and we can only deal with this, let's say, virus if we deal with it on a global basis. Yeah, it doesn't help if we find in Germany a vaccine, or in Europe a vaccine, or in Asia a vaccine, or Russia a vaccine. If that vaccine is not available to all of the world, we will continue with the crisis. And that's why I believe 2023, 2024 is more likely. And the second point is also not so positive. I also believe that our entire industry will change dramatically, meaning that the industry will look different after the crisis, and we will not have the same kind of business as we used to have in the past. Perhaps so far, and then we can dig into more detail, like what happens with digitalization and what venues need to do, and so on and so forth, because I think these are right now very interesting aspects.
Thank you, Jochen. Those were interesting regional and international updates coming from you. And since we are a little short of time.
Oh, I think definitely we have to look at new innovation and digitalization and new hybrid models. And we have to start repivoting to some of these new formats. One of our stakeholders have already started, and Marina Bay Sands has now one of the state-of-the-art hybrid live studio, which allows live streaming. It allows hologram of speakers to be there. It allows augmented reality. And I think that's the one that we really want to work with to start pivoting many of the webinars, many of the virtual meetings, because like Kai or Buffett have said, eyeballs do not sign contract. It's good to do screen to screen, it's good to do Zoom, but at the end of the day, we need people to build relationships, we need to build contracts, and serendipity happens when you meet face to face. So for us, I think it's really preparing our industry to repivot to new event formats, new business models. We need to build up the capability. And importantly, we must make sure that our talent, our workforce and employment are equipped with the right skills, and they continue to retain the jobs. And like what Ravinder said, when the time comes, we have to get ready. And this is the time that we really have to rethink, reimagine, and to invest more resources to see how we can prepare for the new normal. Thank you.
Thank you. Those were words of real positivity coming from you. And I know Nichapa has already shared some good things about the industry shaping up in Thailand. But as we all know.
Thank you. I think in the past, for any exhibition to deliver the futuristic content, the right context or target audience, and build industry community are considered acceptable or good enough. But right now, on top of those, especially within this COVID era, until the vaccine is in order, there are a few new norms. We have to better be prepared. First, the ROI must be extremely valid for any event. The content must absolutely be king, and technology will be critical. So definitely show size will be smaller, but we need to have an inclusive community, and therefore hybrid events, virtual events, or even online business matching application can be the good answer to this. Technology is definitely here to stay. There are some research said that the technology would become the standard within the next 12 to 18 months. And in its initial phase is to ensure inclusivity of the community, and while travel restriction is still in effect. Once the situation is getting better, the technology will play an essential role in terms of hyping visitors' engagement and definitely offer the touchless experience. Health and hygiene will be a prime focus, and therefore all the organizers must follow strictly in terms of health and hygiene measures. And this cover both in terms of detection and enforcement. Crowd management could be the other area that the organizer should look at. Some exhibition, they already said that they want to limit attendees age group so that they won't open to attendees with age more than 60. Number of visitors per hour can be another area to consider. Attendee trace and track system, the crowd logistics are always have to be in radar, under the radar. The sustainability will also play an important mark, all about the waste management, the sustainable catering, less buffet, more individual box, food waste prevention, or responsible travel. We have to know that currently clients are very health conscious, and therefore they would like to have certain exclusiveness, both in terms of cautious consumption, and we need to understand the shifting pattern of the consumption as well. So the new norm of convention would be that it will become hybrid. The intra-regional convention using face-to-face would continue to be so, but they would probably use virtual platform with attendees or speakers from outside the region to serve those areas. Virtual or online convention is becoming a new, the next phase of convention. All of this required a new skill, both in terms of how to design live event or how to design content. Therefore, the new business model would be rather done in partnership format rather than in the past that one organizers doing everything by themselves. So right now, partnership model would be one of the key. Outsourcing would definitely be the new norm. So right now, the industry is coming into consolidation. We as the organizer need to have extended networks so that you can cover all areas using whatever format, outsourcing, partnership, profit sharing, whatever. And of course, everything will have to be done under cost control. So the monetization of the event, cost control, the financial control would be the new area that all the business operators would have to also focus on. At the end of the day, everything will have to make sure that any events would have to be translated in terms of ROI and value creation, and that would be key.
Thank you, Nichapa, for those quick fire answers. I move to Mr. Phil Chung with this quick fire question about what is his take on the future of our industry post this crisis.
Yeah, I better say a few examples that we had here in South Korea, actually, while I'm staying in here. So I saw, what has worked for us because we resumed our shows from mid-February this year. So as many people know, we have collected all the visitors' information via QR codes, and we definitely used separate exits and entries within the halls. And we used, face recognition thermal detectors. And we put lots of on-site hand sanitizer, sanitizing mats. And we even given, plastic gloves to all the visitors so that they don't need to touch with their own hands. No infection. So we saw almost absolutely zero infection at the venue up until now. And we recommended organizers put acrylic, transparent acrylic screens at meeting tables of all types within their booths and venue restaurants. And we installed video conferencing rooms within our facility for exhibitors and buyers. They can freely use, organizers can freely use those facilities for free during their show time. And we, as a venue operator, we try to give more exhibition and convention spaces because this is time for organizers to utilize more redundant spaces for the safety of the visitors, like registration, because they need huge registration where there are long queues. And first aid rooms and ambulance preparation, isolation area, and other important things that I can give as within our document later. And organizers were recommended to give more indirect exhibit promotion opportunities via social media, press invitation to help exhibitor during pre-show, at show, and post-show period. And for overseas, from exhibitors' side, we recommended them to, actually they voluntarily invited local staff, like local subsidiaries or local agencies based in Seoul City, South Korea, and many other places in South Korea to attend the show instead of their overseas headquarters. But those measures can be taken because I guess the most important part is that there should be some sort of public sentiment that things are under control. So we have to see the reassuringly lowered curve of corona infection first. That is what I think is important.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chung. And I'd like to ask this quick fire question to Mr. Michael Duck. From an organizer's perspective, what do you feel is going to be the future of our industry?
What a big question. My goodness. My crystal ball is in front of me here. As I said in my talk, I think it's going to take quite a bit longer to come back than we thought it was going to be. And certainly I agree with Jochen that we're going to be looking at 2022, 2023, hopefully getting back to some semblance of normalities of prior to 2019. Okay, China, as he said, in Shenzhen, large fair, as I said, we had just had 7 fairs in China, but they are domestic fairs. And until we get the issues in regards to quarantine and borders and such like, this is going to take some time. It's going to take time in ASEAN, it's going to take time in India, it's going to take time in the Middle East, and as we well know, throughout the United States. We're also going to have to live with it. This is what Mr. Rajesh said earlier, and I fully agree with him. You know, I don't think we're ever going to get rid of this thing fully, but we're going to have to try to live with it so that we can reduce the anxieties that are throughout our populations, wherever we are at the moment. And these are only natural anxieties or fear, but these are going to be exacerbated more when the cash flow positions are even worse going towards the end of this year, as more and more companies are not going to exist because there are no shows, there's no business, and unless we do some things, as we said earlier, in terms of encouraging, like in India, the domestic shows, get people back into business, we are not going to be having a very good outlook. So it's up to us to not just influence government, it's up to us to influence our industry to gradually, slowly come back, but also in some areas a bit faster than it's going at the moment. And also to give the confidence to industries and to our families, our employees, and our businesses, which will come from organizers to stand contractors to freight forwarders to venues to hotel businesses, M.I.C.E industry, and airlines. You know, we have a huge effect throughout all of our businesses. All of these need to be coordinated, encouraged, and also to be given a position where there is a future, of which there is going to be a future, but we need to do quite a lot more than we're doing at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Duck. And with this, I move to Mr. Jochen Witt to give us his take on the future of the industry in this quick fire answer. I know he's been a little pessimistic, maybe a little realistic in giving his viewpoints that we'll be starting in maybe a couple of years or so.
A little bit. If we go back to, let's say, our let's say, basic purpose of our business, it is matchmaking. Correct? We want to bring buyers and sellers together. Now, what we see right now that there are, I would say, a kind of different players coming into the game, trying to provide matchmaking. That's the one side. And the other side of the coin is that many organizers now think, wow, we have to go digital, we have to go virtual, and they sort of create virtual events. But that's not the solution to the problem. Yeah, if we as an industry are not capable and able to extend our reach to our clients, then it will be very, very difficult to link up to the success we had before. So the point I'm making here is that as far as I can see, in our industry, we have had wonderful, very fat decades where the business was excellent. Now we have to change, we have to become more innovative. And I think that's the biggest difficulty we see right now. And there is no, I would say, no real strategy, which I can see from both organizers and venues to deal with this issue. Whereas one CEO put it into words, we're having a stick in our hand and we're standing in the fog and trying to hit the target. And I think that applies to everybody. Of course, keeping in mind that whatever we do will cost us a lot of money. Yeah, so that's my first point, to say, okay, who is developing the right strategy to deal with decreasing visitor numbers, to deal with decreasing space figures and basically rented space figures, and to decrease with difficulty or with travel numbers and so on. Yeah, and who is dealing with that and making sure that the job we had will be done also in the future when we have these decreasing numbers. Now, having said that, on the one side, I think if we are capable to do that as a company or as an industry, I believe this could even turn the wave around, and through, I would say, the correct omni-channel model, if we apply this omni-channel model to our business, to a good omni-channel model, we can even attract more business to our events. The problem I see is that there is no clear strategy on the organizer side, and also the venues, to be very, very open. They are sitting there and yeah, they are lost in this space. Yeah, and they don't know really what to do with the situation, even though they could do a lot. Yeah, and I think summarizing that, I think there is risk, but there is also big opportunity. We just have to do things right.
Thank you, Mr. Witt, for those insightful words of wisdom. And I would like to mention that to all our attendees to this enlightening session, before we move to the concluding remarks, I'd like to ask Mr. Agrawal, what is his message to the industry after hearing this conversation, this wonderful panel of esteemed speakers from all around the world? What is his message to the industry? What are his takes on the situation? And how does he compare the India market?
Any problems, any crisis that this world has encountered before, we have come out very stronger. So I believe even this COVID pandemic is nothing less than a huge crisis that we are undergoing. It's a war against mankind that we are undergoing, and I think we'll come out of it stronger. And I also believe change is the only constant in life. It is not that the M.I.C.E industry was the way it was 10 years back, it was 1 year back. It has always been changing. It has been a continuous effort to improve. And I think this COVID pandemic will help us reinvent ourselves, be more innovative, and maybe change much more faster, because it will make the urgency of change will be much higher now. But overall, without getting into what will happen in future, my own understanding is a lot of future will depend on how, first of all, as mankind, as people, we respond to this pandemic. Pandemic has come, pandemic will get over, but there will be human response to this pandemic by way we conduct ourselves in future. The behavioral changes that will be visible in the generation that is experiencing the pandemic today. Because when we go through this kind of a crisis in life, it does make certain big changes in our minds and the way we do things. Whether we'll start moving from an expanding economy to a saving economy, I don't know. Whether we'll be start looking towards the future, or whether we'll start living in present, I don't know. But I think as generation, the way the young generation of today will respond, I think that will also shape up the way the industry will need to function or way the industry will go. But having said that, whichever way I see it, I find MICE has been one of the major drivers of the economic growth across the world. And it is also provides a lot of sustenance to the economic growth. If you don't have global mobility, global tourism, global conventions, a lot of businesses will not even grow and a lot of businesses will not even flourish. So in addition to matchmaking or bringing stakeholders on a common platform, that is our core function, I think it's a quite a indirect benefits to the economy that we enable to accrue. I think it is a great mover for any economy. And in future also, I think the role of MICE industry, if not anything else, will only grow stronger with time. Our roles will start seeing some experiencing certain change, but at the same time, it will remain so, and we'll have more roles to play as MICE industry for our countries, our overall global growth because economy is, I think, one thing that has been a constant feature of across the world. If world has to move and become developed or sustain also itself, it has to ensure that the economic growth is beyond the population growth of the world. The economic growth curve is above the population growth curve. And that need will bring us all together to think, help us all together to think and try to see how we can keep on contributing. I personally see, taking cue from what I heard, I think I also believe with this COVID pandemic and the crisis that we have undergone, there will be a huge change in the way we do our exhibitions. Probably a lot of innovations and a lot of technology will also creep in to bring in more value addition and services to our ultimate stakeholders. I think we'll have to, customer is God, the client is God, and we probably will need to look into how we can serve them better using technology. So I look forward to a lot of hybrid exhibitions which use a lot of AR, VR, and maybe a lot of IT tools to deliver better service and consumer experiences in years to come. And I also look at how long this COVID will take on. If we are looking at COVID, which will be over in next 6 to 8 months, and vaccines round the corner will come, and it will be a complete panacea to this COVID, maybe things will not change in a very big way. But in case we have this pandemic going on and becomes a way of life for us, then I think things will change because there are a lot of talks that I hear. The antibodies for COVID, they don't last more than 60 days in the human body. Is that true? I don't know. There's some research is saying in this direction, some research says in another direction. But if that is the true, I think COVID will become a part of our life. And we probably need to learn, and that will have a different kind of impact on exhibition industry. So I think without procrastinating how we need to change, I understand we'll need to change and we'll have to move it in there. We'll need to adopt the change as we go on. As ITPO, we have been a government body who is in the business of promoting exhibition trade shows in the country. We will keep on doing so, and we'll keep on working with our organizers to help them adapt to change, to help them remain relevant, and also help them grow in days to come. We believe in this industry. That's why we are investing $400 million plus to refurbish our capacity and make it one of the best, and one of the best capacities not only in India but across the world. Because we believe in the idea of exhibitions, we believe in the strength of exhibitions, and we believe no matter whatever happens with this COVID crisis, we will come back, we'll come back soon, and we'll come back stronger. The growth curve, as Mr. Witt told, it may take 2-3 years, it may take lesser also, because at this moment, because the way we are deep into the crisis, we are not able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But as we go along, as the crisis is over, maybe we'll bounce back faster and at a much better speed, at a much higher speed, and maybe in a much stronger way than the past. So I look forward to it, a lot of optimism, and I feel the small beginnings that has happened in China, Korea, or that may be happening in Germany, are a pointer that there is lot that exhibition industry can offer. And definitely, as we get over this hump, all of us will be back with a bang, and all of us will be doing back, contributing to the growth of our nations as we have done in the past. Thank you, Raghav, for this opportunity, and thank you all my colleagues for this wonderful insights that we got today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Agrawal, for that insightful message. And with this, I'd like to invite Mr. Ravinder Sethi to give his final concluding remarks to the session, and what light does he see at the end of the tunnel. Over to you, Mr. Sethi, for your concluding remarks.
Everybody over here knows how much of an optimist I am, and I can see Jochen is going to smile when I say that. I think there is really not a conclusion which I can give, but I would just like to pick up a few words what everybody has said. I start with Michael Duck: cautious approach. The world is so fragile, and this we have learned, and this will go on for generations to come. Yes, we have to be careful about the recessions and the health conditions, but at the same time, the openings have started, and your company itself has taken a lead in that. Confidence building is the crux, as Michael said. Cash flow has to be controlled, and we have to fend for ourselves more than waiting for the government to come and look after us. Andrew, Singapore had a start and then a slow start because of certain conditions which came up, but we can see that the Singapore government is very much on it, and you are preparing for the future on a very, very fast track. Your travel bubbles have started in early September, and of course you're getting very, very, very good government support. And Singapore, of course, you made a comment, you said Thailand is ready. I don't think so. Thailand has started. The statistics which you give us, you've got 50 plus exhibitions next year, you've got 43 plus conventions coming here, and you've got great inquiries from India. Wow, that is really good. Of course, you also mentioned that there would be new business models which would come into place, new ways of doing business, which the whole world will have to adopt. Phil, you sit there as a Korean, but we take you more as an Indian. You were the first ones, literally the first ones, I think, to open on a serious. Though you started literally you closed down in February, but probably 1st of May was the first step. But you did it very cautiously, and you did it with all your SOPs in place. Those SOPs have been models for us. Even we have taken a lot of information from an Indian perspective. The IIA has taken a lot of good things from there and adapted to our Indian environment. Thank you for being the leaders in many ways for reopening of this industry, and we look forward to into Europe. Yeah, Caravan is going to be looked at by many, many eyes, and Düsseldorf is going to be an eye-opener for Europe, this way or that way. Let's keep our fingers crossed. The US, true. I think right now let's worry more about their elections rather than the exhibition industry. Sorry about that. IIA, our industry association, has been working endlessly for confidence building, for influencing government, for setting up SOPs. Hopefully by end of this year, our Q3, which will definitely happen. For sure, what you have said, we will come out of it stronger. And I think what you have said, Mr. Agrawal, applies to everybody over here around the world. We will come out of it. Why? Because change is the only constant in life. And the urgency for change will come faster. Now, this last words, the urgency of change will come faster, has to be picked up by our industry. And I feel very positive and confident that a lot of us around the world are doing that. I am 100% sure it is going to be, a face-to-face industry in times to come. Yes, there will be changes. Digitalization and hybrid, the productivities will change, but yes, we will come out of it stronger. So I've only picked up as a synopsis with all our colleagues have said. Raghav, to you, Thank you once again for setting this up.
Thank you. With this, I would like to thank all of our esteemed speakers for their precious time and their insightful words of wisdom. And I'm sure the attendees would have gained a lot by this interaction today. Thanks a lot and good luck.